My name is Freshta. I am a Hazara-Australian from Afghanistan. I came here by boat with my family when I was 2 years old in the year 2001, and I am currently in university at studying psychology. I think where I'm at in life right now, I do have both a strong cultural identity as well as inclusion in the wider community, but I think that takes time to get there. I don't think I always had a very healthy balance of the both growing up, but I've realized that you do need to accept all parts of you in order to feel like you belong, both in your own cultural identity and in the wider Australian community. Out of high school, I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I always knew that I wanted to make my parents proud. And my dad wanted me to become a doctor, and I did not want to become a doctor. So I thought, how can I make them happy as well as myself? And I thought, why not become a professor? That way I can teach, which is what I actually was really passionate about at the time. And I can also excel at something that my dad finds reputable, and I get to be called a doctor. So that was the plan at 18. I went into uni, I did a degree in medical science. I finished that, I did honours, and then I started a PhD, so everything was going according to plan. And then I really quickly realised that I did not enjoy research, and I had been just tricking myself almost the entire time. And now, this year, I decided to start psychology because that's what I actually really enjoy, and that's what I should be pursuing. But it only hit me this year, so I finally built the courage and went for it. Yeah, so I made the decision all by myself. I didn't speak to anyone about it, and that was very, very different compared to my past decisions, because I always ran them by with Dad. And I think this time, because I knew he wouldn't be, for it, I just kept it to myself. I did everything that I need to do to transition. And then when it was all done, when the PhD was officially dropped, I kind of just let it slip over dinner. And yeah, my parents weren't too happy about it because, I had also fed them this dream, out of high school, that I was going to do this thing, and that became Dad's dream for me as well. So yeah, they didn't take it well at first, but I think with time they also saw, and with discussions, I started talking to Dad about it more, and he realized there was no way I was going to make him proud if I myself wasn't happy doing what I was doing, that the final product, even if I became a doctor, even if I became a professor, and I wasn't happy doing it, he was never going to actually feel happy about it either. So I think when he also realized that, then their support began, and now everything's great. My whole family supports me. Coming here from Afghanistan, I didn't even need to be told what my parents sacrificed. It was always known. Yes, I was only 2, but growing up, I knew the story. And even though it was never said, because we made this sacrifice, you must go on and do extremely well in school, the pressure was always there, because we just thought to ourselves, me and my siblings, yeah, they've just given up so much for us. They've fled war, they've left their homes, their family, loved ones, just for us, just so we can have a better life. So we have to do well. That's our purpose in life. So there was that. But on top of that, my parents were always they made it very clear to us that education was extremely important to them and for us to do really, really well. and that was just instilled in us from a very young age, and it became important to me. It wasn't like it was forced upon me. Education became really important to me as well. As a student, I've always been very obedient, and I never challenged anything. I always listened, did well, but I don't think that's what specifically makes a great student. But I'm very thankful that that I did take my education seriously. It led me to, get a bachelor's degree in medical science and an honours degree as well. I've always been really headstrong and determined to do well, even though I never really knew where I was headed. I just knew that whatever I had to do, it had to be done well. But there were challenges, and those were mainly just me feeling a bit isolated and a bit alone, and that would distract me sometimes from focusing on my education. Just not feeling like I belonged or had people that were like me. But that soon changed when I entered university. I found my people, my crowd, and that helped me excel in my education so much more. Because I did go to kindy in Australia, I did learn English and Dari, which is the language we speak at home, at the same time. So it wasn't like one of them was my second language, they were both my first. But I do remember in primary school, which is when I was still developing both languages, I would sometimes, say a random word in Dari and not realise that that's not English. And I had a lot of mix-up like that, particularly in reception year 1, year 2. But because, like I said, they were both my first language, I think I caught on pretty quickly. I do procrastinate quite a lot, but even despite that, I am extremely determined, and like I said earlier, once I set my mind to something, I will get it done. I don't ever think to myself, this isn't let me see how I do in this. That's never a thought that goes through my head. It's always, I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna get it right. I will perfect it. And I think that's something that's been taught to me by my dad, especially because the way I've watched him, seen him experience everything he has. He's just so incredibly strong, and once he sets his mind to something, there's no stopping him. And I've always admired that, and I've just not just admired, but I've just never seen it not be like that. I've always thought that's the way, that's the way of life, that's how you get things done, and it's just been in me. It's not something that I've had to try to learn. Because growing up I was quite obedient and shy, reserved, I kept to myself. I never really let my inner thoughts and emotions out. There were opportunities for people, there were great people around, now that I look back, that could have helped me and that could have really supported me if I had just let them. But because I wanted to keep to myself, I wanted to kind of just be in the background, do my thing and get through it, I think I lost those opportunities. But yeah, in saying that, I think there were, all the teachers I had, they were all great. But no, I don't think, other than my parents, I really felt an immense support from anyone else. It was all pretty normal, pretty standard, your teachers, your peers. Yeah. There was one counsellor in school who watched me grow and go through all of school from reception to year 12. And I really, again, looking back, I really appreciate her presence throughout that time, because though I didn't reach out to her much, she knew that I was very different to the kids around me, and she was always watching out for me and just letting me know. I would tell my 17-year-old self that you don't need to have your whole life planned out. It's probably better that you don't, because I planned out my entire life and I'm not in that place anymore, and I'm actually in a better place. I actually prefer the place that I'm in now. it's good to have goals, always have goals, but let them be flexible. You know, take it as it comes and make sure that you're enjoying what you're doing in the present, and don't be so focused on the future that you lose track of what you're doing right now in this moment. So Dad always, you know, made it very clear that his first preference for me was to become a doctor. If not a doctor, an engineer. If not an engineer, a lawyer, and so on. But you know, when it came time, like when it was year 12 and I had to actually choose what I wanted to do in university, I had to sit down and have a proper chat with Dad and let him know, actually, I don't want to become a doctor. And you know, that was gutting for him, and he couldn't understand it at first, because I had done all the subjects. You know, I'd done chemistry, biology, physics, all of those. But yeah, so he couldn't think of any profession better for me. But you know, we started to have proper conversations, like more longer conversations around it. You know, I realized for myself that I couldn't just expect my parents to understand. They didn't, you know, they didn't have the experiences I experienced. My mom has never even been to school. So for them, it's very simple. It's if you're smart enough, then why not? But you know, I had to realize that, they're just not going to understand it just from me telling them this is not what I want to do. So we started talking more. I sat down and I tried to tell them how I felt, what it was like experiencing school, and you know, figuring out what I want to do, choosing a career, trying to explain to them that a career isn't just something that, you know, that just makes money and therefore is good for you. It's something you have to do day in and out, and what's the point of it if you don't actually like it? I remember this one conversation we had, and my sister was also there. And my sister knows me more than like anyone. And she said to Dad, because I couldn't get through to him, and she said to him, "Has Freshta ever made you less than proud? You know, she's not a doctor yet. She's got nothing like to her name at the moment. She's just a kid. But are you proud of her?" And they were like, "Yeah, of course we are." Getting emotional again. So after my sister, you know, said that, I think it hit them that it doesn't take, not just hit them, but I think it hit me that it doesn't take becoming a doctor to make my parents proud. It just takes doing whatever I do well, and just moving forward, progressing in life, you know, in whichever way that may be. As long as they see that I'm doing well, they'll always be proud. And you know, it was never like my dad said, "Unless you do this, I won't be proud of you." It's just something that I thought and I believed. And I think that also made my dad realize as well that she doesn't need to be a doctor for her to make us all proud. You know, there are other ways. She can do other amazing things in life that we haven't considered the possibility of. And slowly, you know, then that's when I started to also become more confident in my own decisions, and started living life for myself, and just not just setting these goals that were entirely based on what my parents wanted, or not even my parents, what the Afghan community thought and expected of me. I let the world become, you know, as big as it actually is, not the small container I had made it out to be. And that changed everything, and just made me so much happier, so much more freer. And you know, in the long run, it also made my parents happier because they saw me happier. I thought, you know, just like I thought my dad wasn't ever going to be proud of me unless I became, a doctor. I think I also developed the belief myself that my community was not going to be proud of me, or had these very particular expectations of me. And though to some extent, or in some variation, that might be true, you have to prove to them what else is possible. I just saw my friends, my siblings, everyone around me go from high school to university, from university to getting a good job, hopefully, and that's it. That's what you hope to achieve, and yeah, that's the way life goes. Knowing what I know now and having experienced that, I just think that narrative needs to change, or it needs to be known that that's just one option out there. There's so much more you can do. I wish I took a gap year after year 12. I wish. I don't know what I could have possibly learned in that year, or what I could have possibly experienced that maybe would have led me to psychology sooner. Even though the teachers tell you, this is one possible pathway. You can also go to TAFE, or you can also take a gap year, but they don't explore it more with you. They just tell you that there are these options, and it seems really scary to take those, because the majority of people aren't doing that, and they don't sell it to you as much as they sell university. So what are the odds that you're actually going to take that chance when you hardly know anything about it? I would tell them that the world is so much bigger than you think it is, and the possibilities are endless, and you don't need to confine yourself to the boundaries that you do. I know that even though to some people striving to be a doctor is like huge, right? It's a huge thing. But from a refugee background, it's like just expected. Like they just want that from you. Not all, but many. And so, but there's so many other great things. You can go overseas and you can just work in all sorts of different fields, and me myself, I would just always close off such opportunities, because I thought silly things. I thought things like, well, I have to be married by this particular age, and I'll have babies by this particular age, and it's so silly. You don't know what your adult self is going to want, so stop restricting yourself. Stop closing off opportunities before they can present themselves to you. I think that's the advice I would give. Your world is not just your parents and your friends and your school. It's so much bigger, and though you haven't experienced it, if you just have that in the back of your mind, you can go on to do things that you don't even know exist at the moment. So I don't think I ever attached the label of refugee to myself. I grew up with, and I still considered English my first language. But I knew that my parents considered themselves, different and of refugee background. I can't speak for them. I can't say when they considered themselves different or when they saw that transition happen. But yeah, for me, I always consider myself an Afghan Australian. I feel like I only understood that I was once a refugee way later, maybe like in secondary to high school, when I started to see how other people viewed me. In primary school, you just don't understand. Everyone's the same. The kids, they just want to play. They just want to have someone to play with, and you're there, and they love you. And then you grow up, and people start to see you differently. And you feel it, and you ask why. And then I realized, oh, actually, I am slightly different, and my family is different, and my parents are different, and that starts to affect you. But yeah, I don't think I felt that I think the feeling of difference only came a lot later. I think I would tell my 12-year-old self, you need to be more proud of who you are. And if people can't accept you for who you are, then they're not worth your time anyway, you know? Like, don't be so caught up trying to impress or trying to fit in. And don't be scared of spending time alone. It's better you spend time alone when you're younger, because it makes you realize so much more about yourself and understand yourself sooner. And the sooner you do that, the more you understand other people, and the sooner you understand other people. And I think that's I think that's so important growing up, because yeah, it's just important.